Most business buyers make the same critical mistake. They acquire a profitable business and then do absolutely nothing for months. Believe it or not, I've seen this happen with even big acquisitions. A client of mine bought a $1 million business from us. And then after all of that negotiation, after all that due diligence, they ended up doing absolutely nothing. They even had the website down for over a year post-acquisition with placeholder page content saying, hey, new design incoming. Well, spoiler alert, nothing ever came. And as far as I'm aware, that new design never got launched and that business is largely no more. I bring this up because this type of stuff happens even at the high level of the M&A game. If you look at investment bankers, you look at bigger people playing the game, it is not that uncommon to hear about a merger that just did not go well and they didn't get the value that they thought they were going to. They're so afraid a lot of times, these buyers, of breaking what they already have, that they freeze and miss the golden opportunity that is the first 100 days of the post-acquisition after you acquire the business. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid the costly mistake and error by, instead of doing nothing, implementing a relatively proven playbook of a 100-day plan that can dramatically increase the profits right after your acquisition. Now, this is coming on the back of us helping over 2,000 businesses being sold on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So I've seen kind of what separates those who immediately boost their returns versus people who buy something and the business just kind of stagnates. The first 100 days are really your chance to create some real momentum. So here's exactly what to do. So the first 1 to 30 days is really a discovery and stabilization period, which I call the deep operational audit. The first 30 days is all about understanding exactly what you've bought and ensuring it doesn't break on your watch. And this isn't really a time for major changes. It's really about discovery and stabilization, like I said. And a lot of people, when they acquire a business, they want to go full throttle and just do as many changes as they can possibly. But this is really the wrong move because you probably don't understand the business that well yet on an intimate level. So the things you're changing might have some really serious consequences. So I always advise buyers, hey, for the first month or so, let's really dig into the deep end of how is this thing running? And let's make our goal just keeping the status quo for that first month. And by the way, when you do acquire a business, speaking of keeping the status quo, there's something that happens quite often where you will probably make less money for that first month, maybe even 2 months, than what the business was making before you acquired it. Now, this is extremely common. It is going to be all right. Don't freak out. Usually it bounces back within 2 to 6 weeks of post-acquisition. And part of why this happens is because you're on training wheels, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you're kind of spelunking through the caves of this acquisition, right? So if that happens to you, don't freak out. It is pretty normal as you come to grips on how to run the business. So with that said, let's talk about how do we do an operational audit? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. What you want to do is document every system in the business process and the workflows that the business relies upon. Now, you should pay special attention to how money is flowing through the business. This is where really good financial documents such as a cash flow statement can be very, very helpful for you during your due diligence phase to kind of figure out before you even spend any of your capital of what is going on. What are the activities in the business that you will probably have to maintain when you acquire the business? And as you're going through this, I want you to also look at your products and services that the business is selling and ask yourself which one's generating the most revenue, which ones have the highest margins. Are there any hidden gems at all or underperforming assets that you can take advantage of? Most of this you probably already know from the due diligence you did before buying the business. So in a sense, the due diligence you're doing before you acquire goes right into this operational audit, right? While you're doing due diligence, you're discovering this stuff. And then once post-acquisition happens, now you're auditing it and trying to optimize that kind of flow, right? So let me give you an example of how this might work. A few of my clients, they have acquired Amazon FBA businesses. We sell more Amazon FBA businesses than pretty much anyone in the market. And what they would do is they would look at the brand SKU by SKU, every single product that they have. And it's not uncommon to see a lot of SKUs just simply are not performing up to standard. Like the company is spending all this energy on these low revenue SKUs when really they should be spending their energy over here. So what the client ends up doing is basically liquidating those SKUs, or they look at just not re-upping them, not reordering them, right? So that way they can focus on products that are winners. And this kind of decluttering can actually create some short-term pain with some long-term wins. It can also help you lower your overall cost of acquiring the actual business if you negotiate on these factors before buying the business. So one strategy I have seen people do in this kind of scenario is where a buyer is going to give 100% of the profit of those loss leader products or those low performing SKUs to the seller as part of a post-acquisition down payment, for example, since that buyer is not planning to restock those SKUs anyway. So let's say you have, I don't know, $20,000 worth of inventory that would normally sell at $80,000, but is moving very, very slow. So you end up selling it at a discount to just get rid of that product and stop paying those storage fees. And maybe you collect, I don't know, 30K, 40K or something like that. And that entire 30, 40K goes to the seller. And while you don't get to participate in that profit, you get to liquidate the product at a higher level than you would if you went to like an actual liquidation vendor, and you're able to negotiate that with the seller as part of your down payment process, right? So it's a bit of a win-win. You're trying to Marie Kondo the business a bit and declutter it all. The seller gets more money in their pocket up front if they agree with the negotiation, right? And you get to focus more on the winning products of the brand that you acquired. Next, you should be deep diving into customer data. So who are your best customers? What is their lifetime value? How do they find you? What do they love about your product or service of the business you acquired? A person I interviewed a while ago for a HubSpot role that we had open here at Empire Flippers, he did something similar to this that he told me about the company he was working at. He dug through their CRM to see who was the most valuable type of customer for that business. Then he discovered a completely new buyer persona that no one had ever even considered that were already in their CRM. These people were already customers, but the business didn't even know that this type of customer existed. So what they did, they were able to launch marketing campaigns and sales playbooks that addressed this specific buyer persona that they had never targeted before, but were already naturally getting. And the best part was like, this was a really good customer. This was actually better than the ideal customer profile, the original ICP, than they initially thought. So now they have all this marketing collateral that they can go after targeting this type of customer just by looking what was already there. So I often say there is so much gold lurking in the digital dust of your customer data, of your acquisition data in general. And this is something, if you buy a business that has access to customer data, this is something I highly recommend you to do. Next is team and talent assessment. So if your acquisition includes a team, use this period to assess the talent you've inherited. Who are the A players? Who knows the business inside and out? Who might be flight risk? Like they're going to leave because the ownership has changed, which is a real possibility we need to think through as business buyers, right? Do they have business scorecards where the team knows if they're doing a good or bad job? I will give you a spoiler alert. Most businesses don't have this, so it's probably no. Often these simply just don't exist in the business, and thus any employees in the business don't even know if they're doing a good or a bad job, right? So what you want to do is bring all that data to the light, right? If your team knows what we're all shooting for, right, and how they contribute to that overall picture, in general, they are going to perform way better for you. And one of the biggest killers of productivity is simply confusion and lack of clarity on what is important, rather than the employee not wanting to do a good job. So if all of your most important KPIs for the business are buried across all these different data aggregators, which is quite common to be honest, and you yourself take a while to find them routinely as someone who bought the business and is probably spending a serious amount of time digging into the business, you can rest assured that the rest of the team likely has no real clue or motivation to do it themselves. So just by bringing this about and showing them the KPIs we need to care about and how they can go and find them and creating these little scorecards will inherently motivate that team to do a better job, because most people want to do a good job. It's just if they're confused, like, well, how can they, right? So give them the tools to succeed. A really quick win, fix your leaky buckets. While major changes can come later, because remember, we're still in the stabilization period, look for any obvious leaky buckets in the business. Are there subscriptions or services that the business is currently paying for but not using? Are there inefficiencies in ad spend? Can you renegotiate any vendor contracts? We regularly do this at Empire Flippers as we have so many different software subscriptions and vendors, etc. And it pays to go through it with a fine comb and cut as much of the bloatware as possible. Those businesses build these up just kind of naturally over time. I mean, how many free trials have you signed up for and just, simply forgot you were even on the free trial and now you're part of someone else's MRR for months before you find out and cancel? It happens. Make sure you do this when you take over this business, but you don't want to just stop doing it once because this is such an easy thing to forget, but you also want to schedule it regularly. I recommend doing this twice per year and look at these different expenses. And there is almost always going to be something on there, like in your P&L you're getting charged for that has this weird name and you're like, I have no idea what that is. So you're going to have to dig around and find what it is. It might actually be important because sometimes software have different names versus like the name that shows up on your credit card, right? So this is just a quick thing you can do when you first take over the business to start increasing your margin. Most businesses have at least a little bit of this type of thing going on. So make sure you're doing it with your acquisition. All right, now we're moving to days 31 and 60. So the second month, more or less, of you owning this business. So let's talk about optimization and quick wins. The first one I want to talk about, and not everyone is going to be able to have this based on the business that they buy, but majority of you guys should have some control over this, is your pricing optimization. So day 31 through 60 are where you really start implementing a lot of the strategic changes you want to do based on your discoveries during due diligence and during that stabilization period. And first up is pricing optimization. Most sellers, most entrepreneurs in general, are leaving money on the table with their pricing. So you want to review your pricing structure with fresh eyes. Could you increase the price on your high value products? Could you create a premium offering if the business doesn't currently have one? Could you bundle products differently to increase your average order value? These are all solid questions you should be asking yourself as you go through this period. A client of mine, he bought a $500,000 SaaS business from us. And about a year later, it was worth closer to 1.3, 1.4 million, somewhere around there. And one of the main things all he did was put all the current customers that the business had on a monthly subscription plan. I know, super crazy that they weren't already on a monthly subscription plan with a SaaS. So you think that would be kind of normal, but hey, it happens. And when he took it over and did that, he was able to get those customers to literally paying him every single month to keep their service with the tool rather than having to face this friction points of this drop off that they had to go and buy their recurring subscription every single month, one off, which is crazy, right? And in addition to that, he looked at the actual pricing that the SaaS business had because the pricing of this business hadn't been updated in years. I forget the exact timeline. I think it was probably over 6-7 years that they hadn't updated the price points on this software. So when he took it over, all he had to do was bring those prices back up to the market pricing because the market had changed during those 8 years ago or so when the business started, right? And you saw huge boom to his bottom line with very, very little effort. I mean, this is even less effort than getting people on the recurring subscription, right? But even if you don't find something as juicy as that client of mine did, it's almost natural that you'll find something along these lines with the business you acquire. People think that if they're the cheaper offer is going to attract more customers. And while sometimes that is true, it is often not true just as much. There's something to be said for attracting customers based on the premium feel of your brand in general. And I prefer if you have two kind of choices, I prefer you to shoot for premium pricing versus cheap pricing whenever possible. I'm not telling you should, go and overprice yourself out of the market, but you should stretch your confidence a little bit and charge more. This goes double if you're doing any kind of service business acquisition. So your marketing agencies, anything like that, anything where you're providing a service to an end user and customer, it is often a much happier life to have less but higher paying clients rather than being the cheapest service around with tons of clients that are making your hair fall out. Next, let's talk about low-hanging conversion improvements. Now, if you look at your conversion rates throughout the customer journey, where are people dropping off during that journey? What small tweaks could we do to significantly increase our conversions? So this will really depend on, what kind of business you're in, right? Every path is a little bit different depending on the business model. But let's take in e-commerce. So in e-commerce, this might mean optimizing your checkout process, right? Or improving your product pages. In SaaS, this could mean refining your onboarding or adding strategic exit and pop-ups to people that are visiting your website, right? In sales scenarios where you actually have a sales team like doing some of the selling for you, like say in a service business, this might mean tweaking your playbook on what those salespeople are doing, tweaking that playbook sales script that your sales team is operating from, where they're saying different words or they're addressing different objections or overcoming those objections more and more aggressively, all sorts of different things you can tweak in that sales process to improve your actual conversion rate. Now, if you do not have any experience with conversion rate optimization in general, I highly recommend hiring a CRO freelancer or an agency to do these tests for you. I have personally done this over at Empire Flippers. We did it on our valuation tool specifically. And just that test, it doubled our conversions from the original design of that lead magnet. And that doubling in conversion has led to millions of dollars in revenue from a simple $2,000, $3,000 per month testing team to do all the heavy lifting for us. And you can do much the same as long as your acquisition is getting good, steady traction and actually converting at least some customers, which if you're buying a business from us, that is definitely true because we only sell businesses that make money. So if you buy a business from Empire Flippers, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're converting customers. You're literally buying a business that already converts customers, right? So if you're buying a profitable business, you almost for sure already have the ability to pull this off. The one area where CRO may not work as well is if you're getting a low amount of traffic, say like in a local business or maybe a service business. That's like one of the areas where maybe it won't work as well. But CRO, conversion rate optimization, in my view, is definitely a month two activity when acquiring a business. It is just the easiest way to increase your top line revenue. All right, now we're in phase 3, days 61 to that magical 100. This is your strategic growth initiatives. In the final 40 days of your 100-day plan, you want to start implementing all those growth initiatives based on everything you've learned over the past couple of months. First, you want to look at diversifying your traffic sources. Most businesses rely too heavily on one or two channels. In fact, the business you bought, if going based on my experience of helping sell over 2,000 businesses, probably only has one traffic channel, which is pretty risky, right? So if you're primarily getting traffic from, say, Google, could you also expand into YouTube or Pinterest? If you're crushing it on Facebook ads, could you also test ads on TikTok, or if you're B2B, on LinkedIn? Don't take too much on too fast, of course. We don't want to move so fast that we just execute poorly across the board, right? So take it slow. And speaking of that, don't be afraid to hire people to help you manage and grow these new channels, right? If you are the one handling the current marketing channel that is winning, then I recommend you replace yourself first there. This can then free you up to learn the basics to intermediate skills of a new channel you want to pursue. And later on, you can still hire someone ultimately to help you with the new channel. But you should know enough of that new channel to be able to delegate the task effectively. Now, the reason I say you should delegate the winning channel that you know really well is because that's the one you know the best. So you can probably help out your new hire the easiest, right? You can tell them what to do, what not to do, the mistakes you made, all that kind of stuff much easier. Versus the new channel, you just don't know yet, right? It's new to you as well. So you're going to have to spend some time learning that, especially if you want to run it yourself, but even to the point of delegating it effectively. So, but where do you start with it? By expanding the new marketing channels. Well, one way you can do this is you can use your winning angles that are winning in the winner channel to start testing on the new channel you're trying. You can try the same meta creatives that convert and translate those to TikTok. Or you can take your best performing ads and turn those into organic content. It's a general rule of organic content does not always work to drive revenue as a paid ad, but a paid ad angle that is working often will thrive in terms of driving revenue, even as organic content. So this means all of your ad data can also be used to help inform an organic content strategy. Something that's really, really powerful, especially in shorter sales cycles, say like e-commerce, where you probably have tons of different angles. But you can use your winning ads as like your initial thought process of how you go about your content strategy. So next up is product expansion and enhancement. Next, I want you to consider strategic product expansions based on customer feedback. What do your existing customers want that you don't currently offer? Could you create complementary products or services? And this does not have to be complex, by the way. So I'll tell you a story. I have a buddy who they literally just emailed their newsletter asking his audience, hey, what would you like to buy from us? We want to make a new product. That's it. That was his entire product research. And he went and designed and sourced the product that his audience told him that they wanted to buy from him. And once he did it, he literally couldn't keep it on the digital shelves. He was sold out months in advance. The demand was crazy. So once you already have an audience, if you can save yourself a big risk in terms of all the money and capital required of sourcing a new product that no one wants, simply by asking your audience, what would you like to buy from me? And it is a surprisingly underutilized strategy. I don't know why. If you're buying a business that has an audience, like has a newsletter or an email marketing component, you should definitely be doing it. Another way to look at expanding your revenue offerings is a useful thought experiment to help you with the product expansion. So what I want you to do is think through, what do people want or need before buying your product, during owning your product, and after buying your product? Someone buying running shoes might be looking for general cardio information, or perhaps even a paid training on, hey, how do I get better at running? I'm trying to train for a race, right? So there might be some info product opportunity there in terms of revenue. During the actual purchase, they might buy things like leg compression socks, right? Because they want to keep their muscles nice and tight, right? So they go and buy those socks. After buying the shoes and using them, they might buy runner accessories, just a pouch to hold a music player on their shoulder or something like that while they run. Like, you get the picture. Right there, there's several different avenues for the shoe company to expand into, and you could do much the same, most likely, with your product. Finally, there is strategic partnership and integration. So I want you to look for partnership opportunities with complementary businesses to what you are already doing. Could you create a bundle of offers with other products your customers already use? And could you implement an affiliate or an actual referral relationship with the brands of those other products? All you really need is one solid business partnership, and that solid business partnership can literally overflow your entire business with revenue. These are powerful, extremely powerful. And people sleep on them all the time because they think they're like really complex when they don't have to be. And to be clear, there is a difference between what I'm talking about with partnerships versus, say, affiliates. For affiliates, you need a ton of them. As 90% of people who join your affiliate program, they simply won't do anything. That's extremely common. And even more common if you're not paying like an affiliate manager to really like hype up the affiliates to get into action, right? So for partnerships, though, you don't need a ton of them. You really only need 2 to 3 to change the entire trajectory of your business, as these partners likely also have a large audience of some sort that is a complementary business to what you are already doing. So on that extremely positive note, I'll see you in the next video, and make sure, if you haven't done it yet, sign up for our marketplace at empireflippers.com, and I'll see what you buy the next time. See you soon.